Hey, creators, welcome back. We got another nice episode. Ryan, good to see you again.
Great to be back. Always a pleasure, Ethan.
Today, I'm going to be talking a lot with you about this Stage Academy by Vinh Giang. It's this speaking course. And I did 20-hour masterclass last week. And I want to kind of share the takeaways I had from it. The overall, like, what the hell was this thing? And the key parts that I thought would be useful for us to try and like just eke out a little bit of that. You'll remember about a year ago, this was one of the first courses I really got excited about, and by far was the most expensive one. But it was all the way in early 2023. I signed up for Stage Academy, did it online. You remember talking so much about like, this is amazing, this is amazing. I think I even tried to get you to practice some stuff with me a couple times.
You definitely did, and I probably should have listened to your advice on it and what to practice a little bit more, but I'm really excited to hear what you learned this time. It's enough to make a week feel like a year for you. That is already high praise.
Holy, yeah, there is so much to talk about this. And, you Dustin, Corey, seriously, everyone else is any interested in practicing this stuff, just give me half a chance and I will rehearse this with you because I'm so excited about this. What ended up happening is, long story short, he offered like an addition, the masterclass, where instead of just watching the course, he would be doing this live in a group setting, so one to many and online, but it's not a recording. And I've been running into so many more times now where I feel like I'm hitting the ceiling of what I can get from one size fits all education. I put a lot of time and money into this, and I've learned so much. This stuff is great. I cannot stress enough how good online courses have gotten. But there's a certain point where the questions you need or the thing that you're stuck on isn't going to be it's not going to be the 80-20 for the teacher where most students are stuck on this. So I really wanted to jump on this. I bought it October of last year. Every single month, I'm just too busy with this, too busy with that. There's something else. There was the YouTube class. Like, obviously, I have to start applying this. Otherwise, what's the point of having good speaking skills? Then, getting ready for the trip to Scandinavia, all these things. And it was still kind of like, not even kind of like, it was still significantly painful to carve time out to do it now. But this was the line in the sand where I'm doing it now. I'm not waiting any longer. And man, the number one takeaway of, fuck, I wish I had done every step of this so much sooner in my life.
Yes, but would it be as meaningful as it was to you right now?
It's a good question. I really think yes. This is something that anytime I can tell what it is, and I appreciate it so much. That's actually one of the first reasons I wanted to bring this up. This part is a little bit more relatable to everybody, even people who aren't interested in speaking skills. But you remember talking about how much I was excited about this last year. And then I started doing this masterclass, and I'm like, holy crap, it feels like Christmas every second while riding a roller coaster. And like, this is what I want to do with my life. This is what I love. This isn't just useful or has an impact on the world. Like, this is the thrill of my life. And that voice in my head says, didn't you know this? And oh, fuck. I look at it. For 12 months, it's been sitting there as a fact, a piece of data. You really love speaking. You really love developing your speaking skills. And this is a specific way that's incredibly good at it. But it's just a fact with no emotion to it. There's no passion to it. And to me, Ryan, that is terrifying that you can do that. That this sat for 12 months and it was really hard to force myself to not push it any further. And theoretically, I could have pushed this another year, 5 years, never have done it. I could have never done this. While even my brain knows, at least on the fact level, that this is such a big deal to me.
Yeah, it's amazing how much we can trick ourselves into, oh, this is work. I don't feel like doing work right now. And then once we get into it, we remember why we love it.
Yes. I love this more than so many things. You know, I mean, if you stack up most of my love life, I don't think half of them would beat this. So this is kind of a really serious thing. I want to get into the content that we're learning here, but I think this is a really important thing I don't want to gloss over, that you really can so easily forget what you actually love in life, what your mission in life, what your reason for your life is. I'm even specifically making videos about analyzing what is your passion in life and using it to fuel your career. I couldn't find an example of anyone who'd be least likely to overlook this stuff, and I still did. So I'm just hammering this nail even more, that we all need to find time routinely to sit down and go like, okay, so what are the things I'm really into? And when you have things that are like that in your head, we're like, well, I remember I care about that, but it's just a fact, not a feeling. Freaking take 15 minutes and do something with it to like see how much that feeling comes up. Like, oh yeah, I know I love this. Holy crap, I forgot that I like it this much. That's an important thing to know.
Absolutely. It's really important to remind ourselves, and I've caught myself on this once or twice, and to be honest, I kind of wish I went away from doing seasons with my show again, just because I love getting that feedback. I love talking with people, and going this long in between episodes, I miss it and I forget how good it is, and it makes me lose motivation.
Yeah. Well, the thing we're going to talk about after the episode is going to be part of that. So you always have answers for me, Ryan. I might have some answers for you this time.
Hey, I could use some right now.
But I will say, as an impartial observer, the distance between your seasons is getting slower. I mean, getting faster and shorter.
I hope so.
Right. So this was also the first time that I had the experience where the flywheel started moving. Have you heard that phrase used a lot with content creation, the flywheel?
A little bit, but haven't dived too deep into it or thought too much about it now that you bring it up.
Do you want to explain just the general idea?
I've always kind of interpreted it as just kind of getting the ball rolling, keeping some momentum going, and once it starts moving, everything starts coming together easier and moving faster, and everything just gets better once you start doing things.
Yes, great explanation. And the dark side of that is that makes that the beginning, before things get rolling, are twice or 10 times as difficult, where you're putting in so much effort and you only see like a millimeter of movement, or you can't even tell if it's moving at all. But that's you doing the right thing. You just don't have anyone letting you know that you're doing the right thing. And this class was one of the first times I really had a huge hit of that flywheel effect, that I've been putting all this effort in for a long time. And like, oh crap, it's going to start paying me off now. There was a thing where, so Vin is great at speaking. He's incredibly good at teaching it too, which is a good combination. Totally would recommend him because he's good at teaching it. But like they're really disorganized. So I'm going through all the emails trying to figure out when is the meeting and when is that and all this sort of stuff. And I find one email that says, oh, before your first day, it's 5 days in a row, every day for 2.5 hours with a 1 hour Q&A before it. And before your first day, you need to have this list of things prepared. And I'm like, holy crap, it's tomorrow. I'm struggling with like trying to keep my videos getting done. Anyway, one of the things was you need to prepare 2 stories that you can tell about yourself that have significance to you, some kind of meeting, not just I like had a barbecue night. And there needs to be 2 of them and something that you could probably remember the details A to Z without having to read notes. I'm like, oh man, that's going to be a lot of work. Crap. And I realized I've been working on building my story library. Like I've been told, Matthew Dix, he recommended that. I remember talking about that in an episode. Vin explained a different technique for building a story library in his class that I took last year. So maybe I'm not doing this every day. I'm not doing it pro because there's so many other things, but I'm not letting it completely slip through the cracks. I'm doing some of it. I pull out my document and I look through it and like, oh, that one's perfect. Oh, that one, like, these are like solid, good ones. it felt great. But then when I got to the class and we get to the part where we actually start telling our stories, the people in my group were like, holy crap, that was a good one. Like, how much time did you spend like thinking of that? And it's kind of no time at all. Or the past 9 months of just constantly collecting this stuff. But like that was a huge payoff where I was ready to go for what we needed to do for that week immediately. I didn't have to invest more. And it was the cream of the crop instead of just some kind of haberdash stuff.
You built a good foundation, is what I'm hearing.
That's a great phrase for it.
I mean,
foundation,
the
man.
name of the show.
I named it well.
Yes, you did.
Let's take a little moment then, because foundations paying off so huge. I'm seeing that so much. That's going to come up again in what I learned in the masterclass this week. But when you're doing it, it doesn't feel exciting. It doesn't feel that it's going to pay off. You don't get to see any of the rewards. But man, just build those foundations. Be proud of yourself. Congratulate yourself. Feel rewarding yourself when you're doing that.
Absolutely. Man, that is... The story library was such a great idea when you told it to me. I'm glad that you're already seeing return on that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. This is one thing I'm just going to throw out right now. For the story library, I'm thinking that I need to take a break from doing my heavy, difficult videos that I'm making and do some really quick, small pots. Go to the story library, take them out, make a video about it. Bam, 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 bam. I think that would be a great way to get a lot of quick reps in. And it's going to be kind of fun stuff. This ideas that you've already like vetted that it's about you. So you know every detail. You don't got to do any research and you're interested in it.
Hey, that's a great way of doing things. Absolutely. And we're all about the little pots here.
Yes. Yes. All right. So getting into the content, there was two main halves. There was how to speak, which is the most important stuff. This is all the really basic foundational stuff. It's difficult to show in an episode and it's difficult to show. So I'm only going to talk about that a little bit. But then the other half is he talked a lot some storytelling techniques. And some of these were so good. There was a couple ones that he hadn't mentioned in his original course. I'm like, holy crap. So I'm going to share a couple of those with you too. The speaking one tip for that. It's the dynamic vocabulary technique. All right. A lot of people were asking, how do I improve my vocabulary? And some people are like, I'm a foreigner. My English isn't good. How do I get my vocabulary up or whatever? And this is my favorite sign of a master where they don't answer your question. They answer the question you're trying to ask. And he stopped and said, these 4 different questions are all actually the same question. And the question is how to have dynamic vocabulary. And the answer is you need to figure out which words you're repeating a whole lot or which words you're struggling with a whole lot and find better words for those words. You're not speaking about the same topic everyone else does. You don't speak the same way anyone else does. You don't need a calendar of vocabulary just expand it like buckshot. You need to figure out what are the words that are important to you and improve there.
So what you're saying is I need to come up with a list of 10 words to say other than absolutely.
That would be, I would hate for you to lose your signature, but that is what he would recommend.
It's probably a good idea.
All of these things, it's fun to at least have the switch that you can flip it on and off whenever you choose to, because sometimes it's going to be great, and sometimes you don't want to have the contrast.
Fantastic.
He did a even superior job of teaching how to do things this time. I was actually a little bit disappointed that so much of this was just repeating the course instead of adding new stuff. I was expecting it to be like people who'd already finished the course and going on to the next level, but reviewing it was a ton of help and his teaching it was way better. And he really got better into how to actually do these things, which is why you're going to see me actually practicing this stuff and developing this. And hopefully my speaking ability will be improving in the next months. And for this, his tangible actions, thank you for those. was go to ChatGPT, ask it, give me a list of 20 questions that you would ask a stranger to get to know them. Put that on your computer one on your side, prop your phone up, record yourself speaking for 20 minutes, going down as many of those as you can get through in 20 minutes. Then when you're done with that, take that recording, shove it into Descript or Adobe or whatever to get it to translate it into text. Take that text, shove it back into ChatGPT and say, tell me what are the top 10 words or phrases that I'm repeating.
Oh, interesting.
It's sneaky enough, it'll catch the things that are phrases instead of just words. For me, my biggest problem is and that's not a word. You're like, well, you use you a lot. Well, everyone uses you a lot. Like, no. The problem is that 2-word phrase. I had a number, and then I looked through that, and some of them, this makes sense. There was 4 or 5. We're like, yeah, you're right. If I actually go through the video again, looking at the parts where I use that phrase or word, I'm like, yeah, that sounds crappy. That sounds repetitive, annoying. It takes away from the impact, the emotion of what I'm saying. So then you go into GPT again and say, give me 10 alternatives for this word. And then when you got those, try doing these questions again. And when you run into that thing, you're like, stop, say it again using a different word, one that you might like better. And sometimes the alternatives turn out to be even more precise, more accurate, and adds more to it.
I really like that. That is such good advice. And we were talking just a minute ago before the show of how terrifyingly accurate AI is getting, both in videos and in dissecting them like this. Man, it's incredible the advice they're capable of giving now.
Yeah. So with all the worrying things that come with that, might as well not lose out on the good parts that come with it.
Absolutely. Make yourself better so that way when and if something happens to it, if it gets regulation on what all it can do, let's learn all the tools we can from it now.
Yeah. I'm pretty happy to have it helping me as being a coach for speaking. Things like this, it's faster, cheaper, and I can get more reps in it than hiring somebody or saying, Brian, I know you have tons of free time. Could you listen to me speak and tell me what sounded repetitive to you? Like, you got better things to do with your time.
That being said, if you're saying something like, all right, 15 times every episode, your friends will let you know.
Yes. Well, that was the number one I wanted to get at. Another underline of that is when you're looking at things with speaking, this is the best advice for the whole class, probably. This is what I got stuck on last year. You see a lot of great ideas. Like, I learned all these ideas of how to speak better this way, that way, that way. And when I watched my recording, because review is the way we learn everything in art, I see these 5 things. Okay, I'll try to work on those 5 things next time. You just can't. You get no results. You have to look at them and go, okay, what is the number one most important thing? Just focus on that one. And especially for something as difficult, and there's so much going on at the same time when you speak, thinking about one thing and only one thing, then it'll actually start moving and getting better.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I already have a hard time focusing on one thing without getting distracted and going, oh, this needs to be taken care of. I used to call it multitasking when I was at the bar, but now when I'm trying to focus on one thing, it seeps out more like ADHD. It's fine, but being able to take all your attention and put it on one thing, you absolutely get a lot further than trying to do 20 things and just move them a little bit each.
Yeah. With learning especially, let your brain only concentrate on changing one thing at a time, even if it has to do many things at the same time. So I've been working on, I went through, like, okay, I'd like to improve my gestures. There's a couple other things I'd like to change, but number one was, the repetitive words were the thing that bothered me the most, and I think would be the biggest ROI, and that's what I'm focusing on right now, just that.
You mentioned
Okay.
hand gesture, and the first thing that came to my mind was, what prompt would I use to tell ChatGPT, whatever AI did, look at this video and be a hand gesture coach for me? And the first thing that came to my mind was, help me improve my hand gestures used in this video as a coach, an Italian coach. Has to be Italian.
Mm. Well, I'm looking forward to these. This is the stuff that you say that keeps me all excited about. I'm glad we're learning. I'm glad we're like making things that are getting used out in the world. But you say stuff like that, I'm like, dude, this is gonna be so much fun when we're good at this. That it doesn't take us 20 hours of labor to make anything. Like, yeah, let's freaking do that, Ryan, just for shits and giggles. That'll be awesome.
I mean, who knows what it will do? Even if there's no difference in real life between a great hand coach in America and a great Italian one, just because it's the internet, I feel like that's going to have seeped in and make something different in there.
Yeah. I keep on loving like working together brings us back to play. And that's been another repeated thing, that the more you can make your creation and your art have a feeling of play in it, the more you're going to do, and actually the better you're going to be at.
Okay, that's the whole reason why I got into this. Was I enjoy telling stories, and I was mad that there wasn't a podcast out there for the story I wanted. Well, just gotta do it myself, and I'm going to enjoy it because I want to do more work in my free time.
Well, speaking of storytelling, I got a couple items for that I want to talk about. The first one, it's decent and easy to explain. The vulnerability hurt rebound. This is something that I've heard explained to me many times, and always wrongly. Even in the course I took with him last year, I misunderstood what he was trying to say. But being live in the class, I was like, oh, it's the reverse that you're saying. And it was so powerful. There's a thing you hear all the time, especially with YouTube: be vulnerable. The more you share your personal stuff, the things that were embarrassing, awkward, painful, things that you normally wouldn't share, people are going to attach to that. It's rare to hear those, but it seems also very sincere, and it really matters a lot. The nuanced difference is every time I've been told that, I heard, tell something that's so personal that it hurts for you to tell it. Wrong. What do you think it is, Ryan?
You have to tell them a little bit about your own emotions, whether it's, let me tell you about my 21st birthday after I got kicked out of a liquor store, and it's an embarrassing feeling, whether it's something, let me tell you about this amazing thing I did and this pride, let me tell you this sad story of my grandpa passed away. Just having that raw emotion makes you connect more as a human being rather than, oh, this is just a screen saying something.
That's definitely the foundation of it. The specific thing that he was getting into that I'm immediately really feeling is, I thought it was about picking something that was personal enough that it was difficult for me to share, that it was painful for me to share, but it's the opposite. You have to pick something that's personal enough that it's difficult for the audience to hear.
Oh.
That's the part that matters.
Interesting.
And here's why. What you're actually supposed to do, it's a higher level version of a lesson I learned a long time ago. When I was in Ireland and I was first learning social skills, I was not like this before I had the chance to be in Ireland. I met a couple of guys who ran a Guinness club from Vegas, and they were visiting out there. And I met it, and I'm like, hey, you're awesome. Come hang out with us. And then got halfway through the day, and I could tell, like, oh, they're kind of like petering out. They kind of want to do their own thing. And I just naturally, left them the hell alone. And because I did that, just giving them their space, that they knew that if they ever wanted to have space for me, I would be the guy who like, oh yeah, I got it. No problem. That made them comfortable inviting me to hang out with them more. It's like, What the heck? Come on. We got tickets to a comedy club and come out then. We just had even more fun, and they engaged with me even more because they had that freedom anytime they needed it. They know they could breathe if they wanted to. And that applies here, where you tell a story that maybe you've said it so many times or you've made peace with it. That doesn't make you uncomfortable anymore, but it makes the audience uncomfortable to hear it. And then after that, pretty immediately, tell something funny. What that does is it's like going to the gym, or like the example with the guys in Ireland. People just get that used to, like, oh, okay, we can do some really rarely painful and difficult and important things with this guy, but it's not going to be a depressing slog. I can trust him that we're going to do it to like enough that it hurts, but not breaks me. And then it's going to be fun again, where it's like, oh, what a relief. Oh yeah, we are having a fun time. And that rubber band snap from it's painful for them to like the fun and laughing. It's this huge catharsis. It's a lot of fun. It magnifies how intense both of those emotions feel, and you're leaving on the fun, happy one.
Interesting.
Like you see in horror movies, they have to have the quiet scene before the really scary one. And in rom-coms, you have to have the sad one and the happy one go side by side, like the humor one. Like in your stories,
times make the good times better.
15 seconds of difference. It makes a huge.
All right. I'm going to have to test that out and try that a little bit more now.
I spent a lot of time explaining it, but it was one of these things that was difficult for me to get the nuance of it. But once I understood it, it was so effortless to do. This was on the fourth day where I'm actually supposed to first time tell my story that I already have in my head. And he's explaining this. And in the time between he tells me this and the time that I have to like just 5 minutes later tell my story, I was able to add this feature into my story. It was that easy and that fast once you just understand the concept. I had this part where I talk about some kind of sad reveal at the end. And I'm like, oh, well, I can easily think of a joke to add right after that. And completely, everyone in the group went from like, oh, wow, well, that's really profound. But, to like, well, I'm glad everything's great. And like, it was just so much more intense. They loved the story even more. And like, that was just powerful.
That's fantastic, man. I'm really looking forward to using that. Thank you, genuinely.
Let's try that sometime. I want to tell you the story that I did that with and see your take on it. And then I would like to see your version that you come up with, and we can trade back and forth next episode.
Hey, that sounds perfect. Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. Right. So moving on, definitely running into, there's certain like versions of writing or explaining that you need the punctuation that only your voice can provide. So this is a certain level of storytelling and writing that's really exciting to do. The next thing is, this is the thing I'm most freaking excited about, Ryan. And it solves possibly the most big problem, the most infuriating thing that I like screamed and cried over for a year over. The shortest form of story. You know how much I struggle with all the advice I'm getting told. You need to put a story into everything. And then you get this advice about really deep things that are like, well, here's going to be the first 20 minutes of your movie, and here's like the next 60 minutes. Like, it's a 5-minute YouTube video. What the fuck are you talking about? I can't use this advice. And then they'll go, oh, okay, so you're doing a 10-minute YouTube video. Well, then you need to have this and just get to like the emotional transformation as quick as. There was no emotional transformation. I'm trying to teach skills. I'm trying to teach education. And it is the fact that most everybody, when they teach writing or speaking, they just want to teach you how to do fiction and entertainment. So the real advice that I've been needing, it's in short supply. And which is why, again, the Masterclass was the only place I could get it, because he wouldn't put that in the written course, which is for everybody, when he was just chatting like, okay, well, offhanded, we got a little extra time. Good Lord, this was his offhanded thing. It's the most important thing I've ever gotten. The shortest form of story. Actually, I want to explain it. Like, it didn't even come up, but somebody asked, like, hey, all these stories and stuff, like, how would I do that? Like, if I'm in an interview or a business meeting, I can't go into like dramatic things, or even if it was appropriate to, I don't have enough time to. Like, this is really a time compressed thing. Like, oh, well, you just use metaphors, similes, and analogies. And I was like, that's not going to work. And then he explains, this is the shortest form of story. You can condense it into even a half of a sentence. And it gets 90% of the effect. It is the biggest 80-20 of anything I've ever seen. It's going to be hard for me to give you examples because obviously the fact this is the thing I'm missing, this is the thing that I am the least skilled at. But this solves all of my problems. You can be in the middle of talking about, okay, so we need you to understand that listening to others is really important in both your business and your personal life, and you got to get going on it. There's no room in this situation for having a story like, well, so when I met my first girlfriend, like, it's not appropriate. But, you know, if you say something like, listening is the nuclear reactor of business. Bam. That is effectively a story. And you can work with that. You could add 2 adjectives, 3, or whatever. If you use metaphors, you get a little bit longer. You can have tangible, physical things that they're imagining. You can have an emotional component that they can connect with, and it makes it extremely memorable. It's kind of like when we were talking about making stories out of photographs or video. This is even more condensed. You could get all of the elements of storytelling in this. Decide how much you want to add into it or which ones you want to use, but this gives you just this foothold, this handhold that you can put anywhere.
That is really, really fun and different from where I thought you were going with it as well. My first mind went to, okay, compare current situation, let's say, instead of telling a story of how you're overcoming insurmountable odds and a huge challenge, and instead let's just go, you know, this was a real David versus Goliath battle, but we came out and we learned from it. It has the same emotional impact. Everyone knows that story.
So that's exactly it. You have a broader toolbox to use. So David and Goliath, that is top tier. That is A+ metaphor. If you're not able to pick that something like a story that people remember on the fly, you could say like, oh, this is just, you know, big guy, small guy, or, you know, foot versus rock, you know, as much as you can get in that moment. Or when you're writing, you have a little bit more time, you know, you have a wide range of options you could use that will get a huge quantity of what you're doing right there.
So you know that we talked about how I need to make shorter form content as well, and practice doing long, medium, and short. And a lot of the stories that I know and love are only long. It's always just been the way I am.
Same. Having
the ability to just pick out a story that's similar that everyone knows and tie it to that to give them the general idea of the story absolutely will shorten it. And I'm going to, I think, build up not just a story library of my own experiences, but of culturally relevant ones that I can compare to.
Yeah, that's brilliant. That's the whole information compression. And it comes back over and over. Having the right amount of time is probably the biggest lever we have for making good stories or making good content. You could have top tier writing, top tier B-roll, top tier everything. But if it's something that should be 5 minutes and you make it 20 minutes, it's going to feel trash. And I like being long too. So learning how to make it super short allows you to make it any length longer than that too. So, okay, I want to make the 3-minute version. I can do the 3-minute version now.
That is really profound. And now I feel like for like April Fools or something, we need to just put a condensed episode of just talking in metaphors and similes and then end it after like 15 minutes.
Dude, I love this idea. I love this idea. So that's the new thing I'm going to be.
I'm really looking forward to putting together a collection of stories like that. That's fantastic advice. I cannot wait to use that.
Share it with me, man. This is something that it's the biggest key that I need for the problems that I had with my type of content. And similes, metaphors, they're the things that I struggle with the most. They recommended going to more improv classes to practice that quick wit to just think of them on the fly. And I'm just going to have to start working on this and building that muscle.
Absolutely. This is a muscle too.
Yep. The key on this to take away is the reason that this is so powerful is going to be the same reason that stories are powerful, but it shows out really fine here. First, it gets whoever's listening into a creative mood. If you don't say, this is hard, so please don't make that mistake in the workshop. If you say, this is like foot versus rock, person has to start imagining, okay, what the fuck does that mean? Okay, a foot's soft, a rock's hard, it hits, it hurts. They're imagining it to put that together. Now, we all know that stories hold people's attention, but having that gap of knowledge that they have to think and fill in turns on all the creative energies in their brain, which immediately, for the rest of the conversation or the instruction you're giving there, you're talking to a more creative person who's going to absorb more, learn more. Is they are actually a more intelligent human after you use a metaphor on them.
You know what you just made me realize? I think the greatest example of this continuously being used that I can think of off the top of my head is Cheers.
Mm-hmm.
Norm.
Mm-hmm.
Every time they introduce him, it's an immediate call for attention. Hey, Norm, how are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
And it's always a short thing like that that gives you the emotional depth of something's wrong, I need a drink.
Mm-hmm.
Just every time. How's life treating you, Norm? Like I just ran over its dog.
Yes. And that, instead of telling you I feel bad, you're imagining what that is like. You push it together, you feel the emotion.
God, I'm upset that little throwaway lines are turning out to be a key for us.
This is the mind-blowing, which is why I wish I'd started this 20 years ago, because these little subtle things. And it didn't take long to explain this idea. It has so much power for it. And instead of, how do I learn how to write, the next 300-page novel? This stuff, this is what's going to kick ass.
Sorry, my mind is spiraling to how I'm going to use this. And all the little, offshoot stories of this connects to this. Well, instead of telling this whole story, let's just say it's like this metaphor, and then I can tie back in without spending too much time on it. This is amazing.
You can start building it deeper into your sense of the audience feeling of how much time is going to be building inertia with them versus, okay, this would burn them out and I need to make it this long. And that's a strong feeling. You can feel that in the heart of the audience.
I am blown away right now. This is so simple, but so effective.
Yeah. Well, definitely. Let's work on this together too. The last key turn on what this can do, more of the applications that I'm interested in instead of just entertainment. For those exact same reasons, this is far more powerful if you ever need to change someone's mind. If you come up with facts or even then give them references that they're familiar with, they go, that's expensive. That's dangerous. Okay, and that leads to D. But if you use metaphors, they put A to B. Well, this is like rock and foot. Soft, hard. Yeah, that's dangerous and painful. They weren't told it. It was inception. They thought of it. It's their idea. They're immediately in a state of mind where thinking of new ideas is something that they're ready to do. They're far more ready and interested in changing their mind because they're not in like a data processing state. They're in a I'm creating new conclusions right now state.
That is, again, profound. And I thank you for bringing this up. This is infuriating that it's so simple and no one ever told me this before now.
I'll tell you, man, I have these like this. I keep saying that like writing and speaking, these really high quality skills are like the magic that everyone's like writing books about. This is what was happening back in the day. Imagine living in a world where there's no internet, not even a whole lot of books, and if one person knew this stuff, they were the only person you ever met in your entire life who knew that. And they probably guarded this like a secret, handed it down to their children so that only their children could use this advantage to like succeed competitively. This is probably the stuff that kings and, you know, like the local shaman who was considered a wizard, like they just knew these kind of easy secrets and made sure no one else did. And it was like superpower, like they're a freaking magician.
Oh, absolutely. This is there I go, using repeat words. Anyways, this is the type of things that you could make kings out of back then. This is how you rally troops.
This is the Rasputin shit.
Yeah, that's a great metaphor. Tells a whole story.
Yeah, I'm getting better at this. Ethan will finally shut up.
Oh, I hope not.
Bam, bam, bam. We'll skip to the rest. Let's skip to putting it all together. So I would love to talk more detail. There's other things we could bring up another day. But let's save it for the big ones for today, and we can go to like more detail in the future. There is an example that I want to show. The guy, Vin, he has an Instagram account, and one day, a couple of months ago, I was flipping through it, and he had a post, which is an ad, but I'm watching it, and I'm going, this is one of the most gripping things I have watched in a long time. It was better than many movies I've seen. And I want to watch it and then discuss it and analyze it together.
Please, that sounds delightful.
Now, clearly, there's two halves to it. There's like the get your interest in why this matters to you. And then the second half, he actually starts talking about the product. We'll skip the product part, but it's like a 50-50 split. If you want to, another day, we could talk about like the actual analysis of the ad itself. But this is half of the work of marketing. And it shows a lot of like the stuff we're talking about. Okay, so hopefully I can get this right this time. And I am recalling, we just had to share the entire screen. So it doesn't, so not tab, going to share screen. Is that showing anything for you yet?
Not yet. Oh,
How
there we
about
go.
now? All right. Wave me if you don't hear any sound. Okay, no sound?
No sound.
All right. So maybe that wasn't it. Maybe I need to do the specific tab. All right.
We'll get there.
Yeah. Okay, you see it again?
I see it again.
Okay, you're going to try this.
Love more than anything. It's not my family. It's fires. I love fires. Oh, they're so good. I love everything about fires. I love the way they smell. I love the warmth they give off. I also love just sitting there and watching fire dance. Now, the thing about fires is that you need 3 ingredients. The first ingredient is you need a fuel source. The second ingredient you need is, well, you need oxygen, and we've got that all around us. And then there's one final ingredient you need. And the final ingredient you need is a heat source. And the thing about fire is, if you're just missing one out of those three ingredients, there ain't gonna be any fire. I love using fire as a metaphor to talk about your potential, my potential. Because until you have all the necessary ingredients, all of that potential you have within you, it lies dormant. And if you want to evoke that potential, if you want to ignite the potential within you, then you need all of the necessary ingredients. What I found in my career, professionally.
That was a great, just let me tell you a story, seemingly going nowhere, and then tie it directly into be talking about you. And we are all our own favorite subjects of conversation. Just say what you want. People love talking about themselves. So turning a conversation to you specifically as the audience, brilliant move.
He starts, because that is an interesting point. There is a 3-point arc of, over here at the end, you have product, but in the beginning, you have just random hook that's not anyone. It goes hook, interesting idea, to you, and then to product.
Well, of course, I want to have all the ingredients for my potential to be realized. Absolutely. That's a great metaphor, and I love the idea of making a metaphor of something that people aren't familiar with, so that way you can make a story longer. Doing the inverse to what we were just talking about.
So like the construction of fire is less familiar than something else.
You could absolutely say we need all the pieces, or we need all the ingredients to make a cake. Same thing, let's make your potential like this. So instead saying, we need everything to make a fire. We need fuel, we need the oxygen. This is also applicable to ourselves and to you.
That's an extra good point. In two of the courses I went through, or whatever I went through this month, they repeatedly said it's important to have the question that you're implying not have an obvious solution. So if you did cake, the fact that it's extra familiar, the ingredients in it, would actually hurt you, because people are like, oh, I know. I've already checked out because I don't have anything to wonder about this. But it's like, to make fire, you need this. Like, okay, just wood, right? Huh? You have some curiosity and you're like going into it. That holds the attention a lot more. And like we were talking before, how bridging a gap inside their own head is what gets them so open for new ideas. This is something where they're putting the pieces together. Like, oh, yeah, this does work, instead of you just giving them something and they remember details.
Well, I think it also setting us up as the audience or the target audience for this ad to be thinking, oh, these are all really simple things that you do absolutely need for a fire. I wonder if it's something simple that I'm missing to realize my potential.
I like that too, yeah. That, actually, then you mentioned, it seems to be a reoccurring strength. Things that are new. So there's not just reviewed data, but they're very simple. The things that you tell me, like, oh, of course that, but I didn't know it before.
That's, in my mind, the most profound thing is when you can take a difficult concept and make it simple and bite-sized, easy to tell and explain to other people, is such an extraordinary thing.
One thing I want to point out here, he also got us to practice having more tangible details in our stories. Metaphors you're going to get practiced at like nothing else, but with all our stories, he said, you should have emotional feeling and physical feeling. So in the beginning, he starts off with the emotional thing. Like, you know what I love? Even more than my family? Okay, we got an emotional sense that's in your head. And then right away he starts talking about, he's like, fire, it's neat. Let me show you one. He was like, fire, it's warm. It's, dances. It's beautiful. He has very tactile, sensory things that he's saying. And it does a lot of great things that don't need to be explained. It does a lot of great things to have those two things going on.
Do you remember one of the jokes I would make all the time when I was working at the bar? And I'd always joke about how I love playing with fire and making smoked old fashions, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd always use the same line of, I think it appeals to the inner caveman in us all.
Yeah.
That was... there's something primal about fire, where it's such a good hook for people.
It's a great choice of subject. This is something that I've been discussing a little bit with Charlie, where as a student, we naturally get so focused on how can I tell this story better? How can I tell this story better? And he says, bro, 90% of your victory is going to be picking the right story, picking the right topic. So this is great that we're discussing the details of how to describe fire very well, but picking fire instead of picking something else, that, you're right, huge power there.
The other thing I want to point out is what we didn't see, which was we didn't see him pull out a lighter or flint and steel, whatever, to start the fire. Because then you're thinking, oh, I need flint and steel is one of those things which takes away from his story. Or you think, oh, well, I don't really need wood to start a fire. I've got a lighter.
It's almost like visually he implied himself as a liar, because he shows you the wood. He explained the oxygen that's all around us, and then you just need a heat source. And he sits down, and there's fire.
Yep. You don't see what else it took to start that fire, because that wasn't included in the analogy.
And that's kind of the point he was trying to get at, is the emotional tension of the one thing that's missing. This is neat. So I love the hell out of this thing. I enjoy just watching it on top of just analyzing it. But in the podcast I was listening to him today, he was saying that when he makes his ads, the corporate or the creator wisdom is make 10 advertisements and then do A/B testing to figure out which parts work best and then keep those. And he said, screw it, I'm doing 100 different versions. And it made me like, what were you doing to vary on this to get it this good? And you just answered that question. They probably had one where they showed the lighter. They probably had one where he explained a little bit more detail and like, well, if we cut out these parts, it seems to work better.
I don't know. I think having the fire start out small and then watching it get bigger was probably part of it too.
Oh. So many things going on at once.
There's a lot of layers to this, and it's really fun because looking at this guy, I get the feeling it was very intentional and very precise, these decisions. Not just someone who got lucky and happened to have some of the stars aligned to where all these things just worked out for him and got all this attention, and then it was like a one-hit wonder. You don't see him again.
Yeah. It's very intentional. Actually, I'm realizing more and more that he succeeded so well because his first career, can you guess?
Ooh. For some reason, I want to say magician.
You're right. Magician.
There's
all of
just
these
something
skills
about stage presence and knowing how to direct attention to something other than yourself.
Yes.
That magicians naturally tend to build up in themselves.
You can go down the whole list of things that would make a magician great at this. That he had plateaued as his career, and developing his stage presence was what's actually made his magician career finally take off. And that's how he got really into presenting in keynotes. But the thing I keep running into, the people who are the best at speaking or at YouTube are the hardest to learn from. You would think that I should look at the best and try to learn from them. No. The people that are best at it, they can do it invisibly, like a magician. And that was his bread and butter of, I don't just need to get good at the thing you taught me. I need to get good at it in a way that it's invisible and no one even notices it. but they feel it.
I think I've said this on the show before, but one of the sayings that I remember so clearly from my grandfather is, it's not good enough to be good at something. You need to be so good that it makes it look easy where others think they can do it.
It's funny you mentioned that. So many things are kind of lining up on that topic right now. The book 48 Laws of Power is coming up a lot more now. I'm probably going to read it just so I can have that as a reference. It's like an alphabet that you could just discuss with people really fast. Just like we mentioned, the story reference saves a whole lot of time. And one is make your successes look effortless. And it definitely applies to the showmanship and the teaching thing and the presenting stuff. But I'm noticing how many creators not lie, but edit their history to the point of not really, to make it look like they didn't have any skill or any background. So it looked like just an overnight success. And it makes, if you're going to be a coach or make a course, it makes people like, oh, it's so easy. Okay, yeah, sure. Here's $500. It only took you 3 days to do it. I can do it too. Instead of, bro, he like spent 3 decades as a videographer before he started that thing that you're saying his day one was. But it also makes you look like more talented at it if it's the thing that you're not trying to sell. You're just trying to say, hey, trust what I'm saying because it didn't hurt me to do this.
It's a great marketing tool to have it think like, oh, this could happen to anyone.
Mm-hmm.
It can absolutely happen to you. But then it's such a great way of separating yourself. Look at how talented I am. To where this insanely difficult thing that very few people are able to do, I can make it look like I'm just doing this routinely, like get up, brush my teeth, put on clothes, make a hit video. It's insane that people are that great and talented.
So I love it, appreciate it. That is definitely the bullseye for us to aim for. But I'm also realizing take some time and look at some B and C level people for you to learn from. A lot of times you're actually going to learn faster from that guy. And then maybe when you get to like the B plus level, then the A person level, you'll see behind the curtain on them and be able to learn from them as fast. But yeah, that could be a good opportunity.
So, weird tangent, but weird connections in my head happen that I like to explore fully. And talking previously about hand gestures and wanting to improve those, and how good magicians have as a stage presence storytelling. I want you to look up Penn and Teller, specifically focus on Teller's part, because he doesn't speak a word ever. It's all body language, it's all movement, facial expression. I think that would be a great person to learn from.
Yeah. That's a clever ass idea, man. I'll do that tonight.
I'm going to look at some of them too, because quite frankly, they're enjoyable.
All right. Let's move on to the conclusion. Now, things that we've worked on. I have put together these 2 more condensed episodes on 2 of the 6 values that I've been talking about for a while, making videos about that. I really believe in the idea that if you know what's really important for you and just search for the work that actually taps into that, instead of feeling worn out and not just hating it, but you're just going to be sluggish and work less than other people and you're not going to get good at it. It's going to be the fire that pushes you. So you will work harder and get better and enjoy it. So you'll be better than your competitors and stuff. To do this, I decided I need to make a small video, try to make this on a more of emotional level. So each one I slice into like a 7-minute video. And then for that, I picked stories that we already know. So there's no heavy lifting there. And picked movie characters and scenes from that. Half of my work has been the thinking and the writing. The other half has just been going through scrubbing, through just dozens of hours of movies to find scenes that would fit this phrase and scenes that would fit that phrase. It's taken a lot of time. I'm hoping it's going to be another flywheel thing where having that done will be a library that I can draw upon in the future for other things effortlessly. But for now, it seems pretty effective. I put that in a thumbnail. I feel like, yeah, that immediately has a gravity to it. And then in the beginning, at least for like the introduction, the first 10, 20 seconds of the video, I have this familiar action movie doing the thing, the emotion that the video is supposed to be talking about. And I feel that kind of immediately sells you like, hey, you can trust me that we're going to be doing this. You can watch for a little bit longer.
That's interesting. Almost more of an emotional hook for your stories and your videos.
At least for these 6, the idea was these are things that people know in our heads, that these values exist. And if you know what you're really into, it's going to really work. But the thing is, we're so busy with stuff, we never actually really take the time to feel what we feel. The thing is that emotions take time, and you need to have enough non-rush time thinking about an emotion to actually feel like, okay, well, I connect with it a little bit, but it doesn't really get that strong with me, even if you give me all day. Or other ones like, well, yeah, okay, you give me like 5 minutes, I realize I super care about this. So I was trying to do a very different type of video where it's less about ideas and talking and more about like visuals and having time to feel it.
Man, it is astounding how much you have grown from when we first started doing this. Because I remember that first time where you had the realization of truth versus emotional truth. And look at where you are now. I hope you appreciate how much you have grown from this.
I do. I appreciate you putting that out. It is more than a milestone. I personally benefit so much from that because valuing emotional truth, just caring how people feel, is how I'm actually able to really have good conversations now. For business, obviously, you have to really care about that to get to know that if you're going to actually make anything that people value enough to pay for. But like just hanging out, having conversations with friends and stuff, it's so much more enjoyable because I'm like, I want to know how you felt about that. You're like, tell me all the edges of it because I want to know the whole story of you.
It is a wonderful skill that we're working on here.
Yeah. Good way to put it. Yeah. So glad we started doing this.
You and me both.
Well, that's my thing. I know that you're extremely busy. Your new job itself is an achievement. There's a lot of new skills you're picking up there. So maybe is there anything you've been thinking about or any ideas or just, that person told a really good story today that you happened in the past couple of weeks?
So there is one. I attended a whiskey tasting through my work for a local distillery up here, Brother Justice, and it was the founder, CEO. I'm not sure if he's still on. I don't know his full title, but he came in, told the story about himself, told the little bit of a story about a real life Brother Justice who was a monk up here during Prohibition, who was like metalsmith as well as distilling things for the monks, and saw all the farmers making rot gut liquor and said, all right, I'm going to make stills, give them out, and teach people how to make actual good stuff that's not going to hurt themselves.
Cool.
And he had a quote of like, liquor or making whiskey might be immoral or not, or might be illegal, but it's not immoral. That's what it was. And it was just such a good story to where I reached out to him with an email afterwards and said, hey, thanks for coming in. Great products. I have this podcast that I make. Would you be interested in coming on? And he didn't say no. He didn't say yes, but he forwarded me on to his team. They sent a follow-up email asking for specifics. I sent some back, and I haven't heard from them since. We'll see if something comes out of it, but it was a great story, and just seeing his passion for it, and it was enough of a story for him to start a business and name it after that store. He definitely has the passion and the emotion in it. I'd love to get him on the show, and took a big step. Trying to get a guest for the first time is not easy.
Yeah, that's a big leap of skill and bravery.
Especially when it's someone you don't know very well. Like,
Oh,
I was friends with Corey. I like to think we're both good friends with him now. He's a good friend of the show, I think.
yeah, hell yeah. Corey's awesome.
Great guy. We should have him back on at some point. But having that personal connection with Corey first made it a little easier to bring him on, and there wasn't as much worry that he might say no, or how much is his time valuable, what do I need to go through someone else's schedule with him. There wasn't any of that. So this is definitely going to be a learning experience. I don't expect him to come on, but I'm going to slowly figure out a script and what all I can say to get people interested.
Yeah. This one gets you on his radar. I've already had it start to happen where people who were like, it start to soften because I talked to him so long ago that like, oh, well, I like what you're doing now. And normally I'd still say no, but I've known you for a while. So maybe, so you got that train moving. But more importantly, you got yourself moving. Your surface area that you're able to contact and will contact like the future got bigger because you took that leap.
I like to think so. And even if he says no right now, if down the line, like a year or something from now, I reach out again, you would think, oh, this isn't some kid who's just putting together a podcast and it's not going anywhere. He's been doing this for a while now and is still going. All right, maybe I'll consider it a little bit more seriously.
A lot to be said for persistence, on top of persistence without being a jerk about it. Like, if you say no, that's okay, but I'm still not going anywhere.
Oh, yes. And I mean, how many episodes was it for us to get in the top, 10% of podcasters?
I heard today that 21 is where you're in like the top 2%, and this is number 29.
Yeah, it's so just having the drive to keep going and keep making more puts you ahead of so many other people who are asking him. And the only way for him to know that is to keep moving.
Yeah, great stuff. All right. Yeah, thanks for sharing. That was great.
Oh, absolutely.
Now, I got a wrap-up question of the day. If you have a question for me after, that's great. If you don't, totally fine too. But my question for you, now I was talking with Charlie and saying that I'm doing this project right now where I'm using a whole lot of B-roll and I'm actually taking it from movies. And that takes a long time to like grab, but I think it's effective. But I think that's not the thing that I want to be famous for. That's not the skill that I want to master. I don't want to succeed because of that talent. I really want to succeed because of the speaking talent. And what he said was, I actually think that's the way to go. I think that if you train, speaking skills can be more powerful than B-roll can. So I want to ask you, do you think that speaking talent can compete with B-roll?
Oh, absolutely. I think B-roll is a very powerful tool for capturing attention because people, if you're just scrolling on a feed, will look at something for a couple seconds. And if it's pretty, they'll stick around more. They don't listen to it to hear things as much. So that's a great hook. But man, if you're able to get a good story with good speaking skills in front of a person, they're not setting it down until you're done. You can walk away from B-roll. You don't walk away from a good story.
Good point. Good point. Awesome. Thank you.
So my question for you, have you thought about talking over your B-roll, putting a story over it, and combining voices? Why fight them?
Well, that's kind of what I'm doing right now, where
Okay.
that was like my big breakthrough is I looked through a lot of different creators, what they're doing for their intros and what I feel is a great, just for at least for me, what works on me. And the thing I came down to was, again, it's what Charlie does, where just start off where you begin cold open of B-roll of something or someone significant, and there's doing and saying it. And then you continue with the B-roll, say something, and then go back to that person talking over the B-roll. And then after that, then you take over, but it's kind of like the booster rocket to get you off the ground is a combination of your voice and their voice over the famous person doing something.
That's interesting. There's so many things I wish I had the time and resources to do. That's the biggest draining part of this for me is there's all these ideas that I want to explore fully and choosing which ones I dedicate my time to.
Yeah. Write them down. You'll benefit from having that list someday. And I'm personally finding that having written them down gets the pressure out of my head, where I don't have this like, oh, I'm going to forget it. It should get done. Like, oh, I can wait until I'm ready because it's not going anywhere. And then I can focus on the one thing that's most important right now.
That's great advice.
All right, this is great. Thanks for indulging me on my obsession with public speaking and trying to talk like a TED talker. But let's look into either doing another Instagram breakdown of videos, or we can talk about those 2 speaking tactics and the metaphors and everything that were pretty interesting that we want to try to practice together and see what we can duel each other with. That'll be great.
Looking forward to it already.
Great stuff. Take care, everybody. Especially you, Corey. You know I see you. Bye.